It's that time for the groovy music again. I love it. I can't. I have to move. I can't not move in my chair when that music comes on.
You're
What's
such a
up,
good.
everybody?
What's going on? How are you?
I'm doing
What's
well.
up?
So here we are. It's another Wednesday night, another episode. Convene Communities. I'm dragging it out as long as
Finally
I
made
can on
my way
purpose.
here.
That's funny. All right. Hey, Convene Communities. We got the Jodi Watkins on tonight. Jodi, how are you doing?
As good as I allow myself to be.
Exactly. You see that Doc is in a very festive mood. We have Halloween in the background as our background of the slide, whatever you call
Boom,
it.
mother. You thought I was going to say it.
Hey, this is going to be a good one. We're talking to Jodi Watkins tonight. And Jodi, you've been around Convene for quite a bit. And so excited that you're here. Excited about the progress and everything that's been going on. But we're going to get into that later. What we're going to do for the first segment here is we're going to talk about you and who you are and what makes you who you are. So start interviewing and we're gonna dive in. So start interviewing. Start talking about who you are. Let's introduce yourself. I should say that.
Introduce myself. All right. Well, you already did that. So I am Jodi Watkins. The Jodi Watkins. That was funny. You put that in there.
Exactly.
I'm gonna take that from Josh. But let's see. Who am I? Well, I am a flawed individual, but I'm realizing that everybody is. So I guess that's why people are starting to relate to me a little bit better. I grew up in a small town called Fernandina Beach. It's right north of Jacksonville, where we are now. Um, but my upbringing was pretty crazy, to be honest. My dad left when I was 3. It was my mom and I for a couple years, and then she remarried, but she remarried someone who was an abuser, and he verbally abused me mostly, but it was verbal and physical for her. So I grew up taking care of her basically. So I just always tried to fix situations. There was a lot of chaos and stuff like that. So anyway, that was, my upbringing from the age of about 6. When I was 7, my mom lost a baby. There was a lot of stuff that kept going on. When I graduated high school, I was homeless. I was living in my car, and my cousin invited me to come down to Gainesville, Florida, which was a few hours away. And so I went down there and played basketball, went to college, and I thought that I was going to be playing basketball for the rest of my life. But God had other plans. And I ended up back in Jacksonville, Florida, living with my mom, which I hadn't lived with her since I was almost like 15, almost 16. Um, so that was a little tricky at the age of 20, I believe. And I was back and forth. So I almost moved to San Diego, California, but it was too expensive. And I came back to Florida. And then I ended up I was between the Marines and the Air Force. And
Yep.
my Marine friends told me to go Air Force. Sorry, Matt.
So you made a
Sorry,
mistake,
Brenda.
but that's really what this show's all about not taking the right road.
Well, I'm just grateful back then the Air Force was giving out waivers like candy. So I was able to get into the Air Force. That's a whole nother story in itself. I had 3 waivers to get in, and they were not physical waivers. It was some other stuff. So um, I won't go into that. If you want to ask me those questions later, you can.
Yeah.
Which waivers? But yeah, so anyway, I left Jacksonville, Florida. I went to boot camp January 5th, 2000. Ended up in the Air Force, total of 15 years. But during that time, there's a lot of, I always tell people now, before you go in the military, try to heal from your stuff first. I didn't know that obviously then, and I didn't even know
Well,
I had
what
anything to heal
young
from.
person does? What young person does?
Yeah,
Any young
I
person
think
does not.
you just kind of learn how to keep going. But the problem is, and I know this now, when you're used to shut up and color, right? That's your upbringing. Then you go in the military and then they keep telling you to shut up and color. So you just compress, 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 compartmentalize, suppress, 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 right? And what happened in my life anyway, and I hear this from a lot of veterans, is once you get out, it's kind of like and I think because also I didn't plan on getting out. That's a whole nother story too, but I didn't plan on getting out when I did. So it was kind of like a slap in the face where I found out I was a number, right? Like
Yeah.
I was like, wow, 15 years of my life just left and I have nothing, absolutely nothing to show for it.
Yeah.
Except for the experiences, except for the lessons, the experiences, I was an instructor for a little while. I did work on airplanes. I was in a male dominated career field. I had to hold my own there, you know. So I did come away with all that, but of course when the Air Force went away, I wasn't looking at it that way. I was looking at what I'd lost, you
Yeah,
know.
absolutely. And a lot of veterans go through that. A whole I did,
Mhm.
again, I was retired at 14 and a half years and I walked into a doctor's appointment and, 2 minutes, it was a 2-minute doctor appointment. I'm not kidding you. And then I was out. And you find in my case, you find out that you're a number of the big green machine. And a buddy of mine, Vince Martinez, that you guys have all met, he looked at me and he said, "Look, you got to understand, Marine Corps has been around for 200 plus years. It's
Mhm.
going to keep being around tomorrow and the next 200 years, hopefully. And so
Exactly.
you are a number. And so you
Yeah.
have to find a way to take care of yourself."
Hell, I'm still going through it.
Oh, exactly. I
Yeah.
mean, how long have you been out
Yeah.
now, Doug?
2 years.
2 years. And it's
Yeah.
such a
Yeah.
transition. I mean, I got out in 2007 is when I got out,
Yeah.
so it is a transition, a true transition,
Yeah.
especially when you're taking some heavy burdens like you had in your life. I didn't have the heavy
Well, and I
burdens.
accumulated more. That was the
Yeah.
problem too. It was like I came in with all that, weight. I talk about the mental weight now. I came in with all that weight and then I accumulated more, because and I talk about this now, like I got into nutrition for brain health. It wasn't for to achieve a look. My mom was on a lot of medications that were literally taking her down. And so I took pharmacology and nutrition to learn how to get her off of some of the medications that were making her suicidal, and were literally killing her because they weren't mixing very well. So I started that journey in 2008. I will say I began taking care of her in 2007. I came back from overseas to take care of her. It was a 4 hour round trip a lot, so it was a lot of that driving back and forth. But that's how everything started for me. She had multiple sclerosis, so I had to learn how to get her moving correctly.
Mhm.
So there was a lot of stuff that ended up in there, and I was also taking classes for a physician assistant school. I got very interested in the medical field because of what I was doing with her. And, I took a whole bunch of classes. I got accepted, but during that time, she passed away. And so there was a lot of guilt and shame that I accumulated because I wasn't there with her. I was actually in the middle of finals. So when she passed away, I went back up to Georgia to take my final and I wasn't there with her. So there's a lot of guilt and shame that I accumulated with that. And then what did I do? I compressed, I compartmentalized, I got accepted to PA school. And when I went to PA school, that's when some stuff was coming out too, because we were talking about some of the diseases that she had. We were talking about the bacterial infection that she passed away from. And that stuff started hitting real hard. But
Mhm.
again, I never went to therapy. It was looked down upon.
Sure.
Again, I was female on the flight line. You better suck it up, right? Like,
Well, that's the
and I
military
just
for you, right?
never went. Yeah, I never went to therapy. And so literally it was after I got out that, I mean, it was just everything hit me all
Yeah.
at once. It was 2019 and it was just like I've never been I never had that I can remember. I don't remember ever getting to a point where I literally just did not wanna do anything
Yeah.
at all,
Yeah.
and that's where I was, and I didn't know how to get out of it.
Yeah, and that's what happens when, when people get hit so hard and true depression hits in and sinks in and that anxiety and everything that's going on, you're trying to be a mom, you're trying to be a wife, you're trying to, figure out what you're going to do on the outside. You don't always say, but it's very hard to say, somebody who's never been there, but you don't always feel accepted on the outside,
Mm-mm,
because
not
you
at
had
all.
this in my case, I say it was the Marine Corps security blanket. In your case, the Air Force security blanket, and Doc's the Navy security blanket. But all of a sudden, you lose
Mhm,
that security blanket. You're not getting paid on the 1st and 15th. You're not. You don't have the support network that's around you, and
right.
it becomes really hard. And so when you're carrying all the weight that you had on your backpack, it just gets brutal.
Yeah. And it honestly didn't hit me until I moved back to the States. I was out for a couple years while we were overseas, but the thing there is I was personal training on a base. I was doing nutrition. I've started my own company. I just got my master's degree. And so things were okay because I was still around the military. I
Yeah.
was around, so it was a joint base. You know, he was at Kadena, but I was training on Foster, which was a Marine base, right? So there was
So
Marines,
you
Navy,
stepped up right there at the end. Go ahead.
right? Whatever. Anyway, but there was all, you know, all branches were there, and so I fit in. You know, I did still have that support. Like, you know, I went a couple of times and trained a couple Marine units. I made a couple Marines cry. That was cool. But, you know, and so I
Probably
was
Pogues.
still, when we were in Japan, I still felt like I was in, even though I wasn't. But when I got back here to the States, I was literally a face in the crowd. Like, you know, I hadn't lived in Jacksonville, Florida in 20 years. Nobody knew me. I had this business, but trying to restart it here was just like my online. It was an online coaching business, but you know, my clients were starting to. I try to pour into people so they don't have to have a coach forever, and so
Yeah.
you know, people were starting to graduate out, which is great. That's what I want. But the problem with that is my business started dwindling because my clients were graduating out. And then I was just like stuck. I just became stuck.
Yeah.
And I invested a ton of money in business coaching, money I did not have, tens of thousands of dollars I did not have. And that wasn't working. But it was because I wasn't ready. I just wasn't ready.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, and it's tough. Again, you lost your mom. You and Tori were separated. You're for a while he was still in. You're a single mom, you know, for the most part. You're living in Jacksonville, brand new, don't know anybody. That's a lot of weight on anybody, much less somebody carrying, you know, like I said, the burdens that you have. So,
Yeah.
you know, you start doing some transitioning, you know, you start, you know, going through the process, but this wasn't like an overnight process. So let's talk about the things you started to do and go through during that time. Because here's what we're talking about, everyone. You know, with Convene Communities, we talk about real life, real people, real experiences. We talk about we all have a story. We all have something that makes us who we are. And what you're going to see as we transition through this podcast is that Jodi has a story of everything that she's gone through. And the key thing about what you've done, Jodi, and we're going to show this, is you've taken that story and you've made it into something that is able to help others progress through some of the stuff that you've gone through. So let's talk about some of that progression that you personally had to go through before you could really start helping others.
Yeah. It was a lot of back and forth. I'll be quite honest. And you've seen a lot of that, right? Like, well, in 2019, when, you know, that depression hit, it also really hit because, you know, in the military, when we moved, they had TMO, right? So TMO so now I have an apartment filled with boxes everywhere. And then I started feeling very overwhelmed, right? Because I'm like, I don't even know where to start. So now I'm depressed, overwhelmed, everything's gone away, right? Like, that's how I was feeling. So one day, and I always tell people, like, you know, I don't ever tell people what to believe or anything like that. But there was one thing I had not tried. And in my apartment one day, I literally I had hit rock bottom so bad that I just fell to my knees one day and I was just like, if you're there, this would be a great time to step in. Like, you know, like I really just have absolutely nothing left in me. Like, you know, and so after that, I began to do what I did when I was a kid, when all the chaos was there. I started writing. And I ended up in a workshop one day, and the guy was like, you know, if you have a business, write a book. You need a book, right? And I'm like, well, I'm a writer. That's easy, you know? And so I had to really think about, though, you know, because I always tell people, yeah, I am certified personal trainer and nutritionist and all those things. I was like, but what I learned from my clients was if I don't help them here and with me, right? If I'm not here, okay, and I'm not time blocking and I'm not even willing to take care of myself, I can't even start implementing an exercise program, a nutrition program. You know, like none of that's going to
Yeah.
happen. And consistency, that goes way out the window because you haven't even hit. So that ended up being my book. It was mindset, time management, self-care, and I was like, okay, well, we got to get through those first. And then nutrition to me is even more important than exercise, because guess what? Every time I had surgeries, every time I was laid up, every time, right? If I didn't know how to eat,
That's right.
that would have been a problem. I can't exercise, so I
We've
got to
talked
know how
about
to
that a
eat.
lot, right? Because
Woo!
I've gone through the
Yes.
issues. So yes, yeah, for
Yes.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, that's really kind of where it started. I did get a couple, I shed a lot of mental weight that year, to be quite honest. I ended up meeting a lady. Looking back now, I say, you know what, everybody comes into your life exactly when you need them, and they don't necessarily stay. Like, I don't even talk to her anymore. But she came into my life. She allowed me to speak on something I hadn't talked about in 20 years. I had a lot of shame and guilt behind it. And I tell you, when I talked about that, it was 3 minutes and I felt like I lost 85 pounds of weight when I got off that
Yeah.
stage. And that
Yeah.
just started everything for me. So,
So it's talking about your story. It's telling your story. A lot of times, I think you and I talked about this. I love, there's a video. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's Denzel Washington. And he's given a speech at a college graduation. But
mm,
what he's talking about in this speech is he's talking about you have to fall forward. You cannot fall
yes, I've
backwards.
watched that
And
one.
that I
Yes.
love it. And I think the message is so spot on. It's one of my favorite things. I'll go back and watch it because I think what we do as humans is and veterans, I'm going to get hard on veterans, is veterans, we live in our past. We hold on to everything that we've gone through. We're sitting there, just living in our PTSD, in our things that we've gone through, and we don't fall forward. We don't say, okay,
Right.
we can learn from our past. We can learn from our past, but we got to move forward. That's what you've been
Yeah.
able to do over the last that I've been able to witness and talk to you. And we've had a couple of talks, every once in a while, as the counselor. But we've gone through and we've talked to it, and I've watched you fall
Yeah.
forward. So, well, the
Yeah.
key thing is, Jodi, as we transition into the next little part of this, is how did you fall forward? And what did you do? How did you take all this stuff that you've gone through and how did you turn it into something special? So, how did you come to Convene Communities?
By way of our dear friend, Lisa Herring.
Which the majority of people
So
can.
I published my book and I finished it all the end of 2019. It officially got published in 2020. I had all these things lined up for book signings and then COVID hits. Bam. So all that depression, all that stuff, right? And then I wrote the book. Really, I still didn't quite want to be here, to be quite honest. I talk about that now, but so I wrote the book and I had all these high expectations and then all that happened, right? So anyway, Lisa found me in a Facebook group. I didn't know her. She didn't really know me, but I guess she saw something. And she said, "Hey, I would love to introduce you to my good friend Matt Kern." And I'm like, "I don't know who that is, but thanks for reaching out." Sure. Right. So she she introduced me to you and that's where it all started, right?
Yep, it is. It is where it all
Yeah.
started. So, and it's funny you said earlier, sometimes God has a way of interjecting when it's time. Right?
Mm,
And so it's funny, we talk about how people came to Convene, and you'll see that in a lot of ways. People come to Convene and get introduced to Convene when they're least expecting it. They don't even know how they got here or why they're coming here. And then they open the door and they see that there's this big, huge family of people that
yeah.
care about you, that love you, that pour into you. And that's really what we are. You see down there, Convene Communities podcast there, but it's the platform with a purpose. And that's what this thing is about. We really want to help people out. So you start transitioning in, and it happened. You were an overnight success.
Was I? I don't know about that. Well, I will say I had help from your son, right?
That's
Braden
right.
built my first course. He took everything out from my book and helped me with that because I had no idea what to do, right? So shout out to Braden. Um, but it at the time I still struggled with things being too good to be true. That was
Yeah.
my whole life. Like I would have high expectations and I was so used to being let down. So I just always expected that. So even when this came along and you saw that, right? It was I still kept kind of going off, right? It's like, okay, well, I had people that wanted me to train them, so I'm going to go to their house. Sometimes I wasn't able to get on the calls that we had. I don't know if you remember all that, but I had to go through that journey though.
Sure.
I had to go through all that.
Yeah. Well, and so as we transition, we're going to show your community and what you've really created. So you own your own community. It's a personal community here. And so I have you talk about that. But one of our jokes that happens between me and you is that you're a little bit of a shiny object person. So I've told you to create a class on avoiding the shiny object.
I will. That will come. Yes, that's on my list. Don't worry.
So talk about your community, because you've really brought this to life over the last few months. And, you've been around Convene for a minute, but this is what you've done in the last few months, Jodi. I want to give you kudos on and give you complete credit because you've really created something different and all that. And it's really pretty cool.
Thank you. Well, as you know, I didn't start with my own community, right? We had another community and that's where my course was. But as I was evolving, I was just like, and I was doing other things. So I was like, wow, I think it would be great to have my own community. And that's when we came together and gave me the thumbs up, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it took me a while even with that because the problem, and this is why I talk a lot about people pleasing. I say I'm a recovering people pleaser addict, okay? So when I'm addicted to people pleasing, I can't speak for everyone else, but when I'm addicted to people pleasing, I will stop what I'm doing to go help other people. So that's what I was doing. So it was the shiny object, but it was also, well, I can be valuable here. I can be valuable with them. I can be valuable here, right? So what I had to stop doing was that. And so I literally got to a point where I just shut off. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to focus on my stuff for right now.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And so that's what the game changer was over the last few months.
Talk about real quick. Just say, what is your community? What's the focus of your community? The name of it, I'm going to read it from the top, is, Jodi Watkins, Life, Health, and Leadership Shared Learning Community. So talk about that. What does that mean?
Okay, well, I started realizing that I can help people get healthier, but I need to also help them in life, and I talk a lot about life stuff because I had to go through that. It doesn't matter what you look like, doesn't matter how great your food intake is. If you're falling apart by the seams mentally, none of that matters. Yeah. So that's why I started doing the life and health, because I was like, I want to help people with the 95% of life outside of the gym. I can help you at the gym, but let's focus on these other things, right? So I started doing that. Well, then recently, I started realizing that I have a lot of leadership capabilities from the military and from all the things that I've been doing over the last however long, right? I've been leading teams. I've been doing all these things. And so I ended up getting an offer to come in, and I got paid fairly decent for the fact it was my first time. And they wanted me to talk about leadership, but they wanted me to talk in a way that was very authentic. And that's all I know how to do anyway. And so I started sharing my story about authentic leadership and not forcing things. So it's the unforced pathway, right? Because I know that all too well, when you force things, you hit a roadblock every single time. So that was my slide. It was a roadblock. And she's just looking at it like, right? Yeah. So that's where the leadership came in. I'm actually through a nonprofit called the Mission Continues. I'm actually going through their Women Veteran Leadership Program as well. So I will have a certification out of that with leadership. And I really love to teach leaders how to lead authentically, but also take care of their people.
Jodi, I'm glad you said that.
Happy, then.
Yeah, I saw you in a commercial.
Did you?
I did. What's the organization again?
It was Fleet Management.
No, it was the other one you just mentioned, the nonprofit.
Oh, the Mission Continues.
Yes, it was a
okay.
It was actually an ad
funny.
on YouTube.
I've been to a few. That's funny. I've been to a few of their events. Yeah, so I'm in the Women Veteran Leadership Program right now. So we're going to graduate. We go to DC November 8th through I get back on the 12th. And I will officially be a graduate of that program. So
pretty cool.
Leadership is important. I've always led by example. I always tell people, if you just follow me around, you'll learn everything you need to know, because I'm going to be that person that leads by example. Even in the military, I had somebody reach out to me from 20 some odd years ago. And he said, you always led by example. You never told us to do anything that you weren't willing to do. And I still don't do that. I always tell people, I'm like, I'm coaching me. You just get the benefit. Like, there's absolutely nothing I'm going to tell you that I'm not doing every single
That's
day.
a rare thing in the Air Force. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So you built this
Watch
community
out.
out, right? I know. I stopped you in your tracks. That was awesome.
Better watch out.
Yeah. So
where are my Air Force people?
I know you built this community, and
They're off work. Are you kidding me?
Hey, I didn't say Air Force and I didn't say Space Force. I'm talking about my real Air Force. And Flightline, we're different. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on, Matt. You're a pilot. Right. You couldn't do nothing without your maintainers. Don't mess with me.
That's right. So some of the things that you offer up in this community is, you offer blogs and you write. You're a writer, right? So
I am a writer. Yes.
Here's an example of one of your blogs, and the vital importance of boundaries. This is so huge. This to me, as a counselor, my goodness, and you reference somebody here, and you write about it, but you're offering resources, and boundaries are everything.
I do.
How to build boundaries. But this
you
is
do, and I learned that in therapy. Yeah, that was something. So I did go through EMDR, eye movement desensitization rehabilitation. Right, I always forget the R, but that was it. But I did go through that. It took me about 10 months, 11 months to graduate that program. But that's one of the things we worked on. It was the releasing of the shame and guilt. It was releasing, the people pleasing as much as possible, understanding I was valuable, creating healthy boundaries. That was something I had no idea how to do. I would literally I was like a doormat. I was just like, yeah, go ahead and wipe your feet, right? Like every single time. And we can't be like that. We really can't. So that's why I wrote that. So everything that is written by me is things that I was going through at that time, usually. And I was like, well, hopefully this can help somebody else,
Well, and I would say, look, you should go to Jodi's community just for her writing, because she writes,
Thank you.
Problem is you get, somebody like me who's a Marine that doesn't know how to read, and that becomes hard for me, but now you're a good writer. And
which is why I started doing more videos later on. We had these conversations. Yes.
Yeah, we did have it. So I'm like, Jodi, I can't read. So if I can't read, I can't read. That's a long thing.
Well, what's funny is a lot of people weren't buying my book because it wasn't an audiobook. So I'm going to have to rebrand it and do the audiobook and all that stuff. But I never, you don't think about, we all have blind spots, right? Like, you don't think about how other people need to do things, right? And so what happened was I did start getting around a lot of people. You weren't the only one. I got around a lot of people that were like, I wish you would do videos. I wish you do this. So I had to force myself. That was very uncomfortable for me. So that's why I started my podcast, because I was like, well, this will force me to get uncomfortable, right? Like now I got to interview people. I got to listen, right?
Exactly.
So I just started practicing that way. And then I started doing more, lives, just getting on, I'd be driving in my car and do like an Instagram or Facebook.
Matt's not being fair to himself, because he wanted to be a writer, but the first time he filled up the screen with crayon marks and he didn't know what to do.
Crayons. I like red crayons, to be honest with you.
Well, but that's why we have to surround ourselves by people that are good at other things, right? Yeah. Like I'm learning that now in my life, and that's why I love what this site is all about. It's collaboration, because I'm not good at everything. I have my gifts, but Matt, you're an amazing mentor. Like you've been mentoring me this entire time, and I'll be honest with you, you're why I'm thriving now, because you also gave me the tough love that I needed when I needed it, but you did it in such a compassionate way. So
right. I find a way to balance it,
Yeah.
I don't want to come
taught me a lot too. You've taught me how to, listen to people. You've kind of taught me just by our conversations, right? So it's really good to surround ourselves by people that do other things, because then we can come out on top in all different ways, and we're seeing that now with what we have here in this family.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing Brenda said, crayons are great for writing. So it's my other Marine friend. We love our crayons.
Yes.
So yeah, here's the deal is, you're a good writer. Coming in and just reading your blogs are great, but another key aspect of it is discussion boards, and discussion boards are awesome inside of there. And so we'll pull up that slide that shows discussion boards. These are some of the topics, and you can see what I love about this is, I ask you a question about time management. You got Jodi's asking, Jodi, spelled the same, I don't know if that's your
Yes,
alter ego
she's
or
my good friend. She's known as she kept Jazzy when she was a baby. So
okay,
she's known
cool.
us for quite some time. Yes, but
Yeah,
it's
that's
funny.
cool.
Our names are
Yeah.
spelled the same.
But that's one of the key things about a discussion board is that you can put stuff in as yourself, or you can put stuff in. People can put stuff in anonymously, but it's that
Mhm.
back and forth that goes on. And so,
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things we really have to keep pushing is your members can add and your members can ask you questions.
Yes.
You're the expert, and we want to
Yes.
keep doing that for sure.
Yeah. That's what I
So
keep telling people. I'm like, "Hey, please, come in and engage. Don't just sit there." I love that people come in, but, ask questions, engage, and make yourself important because you are important.
yeah,
There's no one of us that's more important than the other. It's, we got to be able to come together and support each other. So I want
yeah,
everybody to come in and feel that.
yeah. Um, so here's the deal: is that it's all about sharing life and sharing experiences, right? And so that's one of our
Mhm.
key aspects of that. And you do a wonderful job of writing experiences, and so we'll show that.
Thank
And
you.
these are your public ones. So not to mention you have a lot of private ones in your group. But talk about
Mhm.
your experiences, and a lot of this is you're such a good writer. You're getting your writing inside of the experiences.
Yes. That's one valuable aspect as a business owner and a writer is I was able to finally get everything in one place, because I would have blogs on my website and things like that. But now I was able to put it all in one place. And I tell people now it's interesting. My wrist started hurting a few years back. And so I just had two back-to-back wrist surgeries over the last couple years. And so I couldn't handwrite anymore. And so I had to start typing a lot more. Well, later on, I realized that allowed me to copy paste a whole lot
Yeah,
easier.
yeah.
So I was able to start doing that. So everything can be used for the greater good if we look at it the right way. It's all about
Yes. So I
perspective.
love these experiences. One of them says, breaking news, there is no magic pill in life. I love that. I literally do because people are out there looking for the magic pill and they
There's
don't want to put the
none.
hard work in whatever area that they need to put the hard work in. They want it to just fall in their lap. Life's not easy. I think this is a whole nother tangent. We won't go on this, but we talk about this.
Right?
If you look at
It's
our
a whole nother
kids,
podcast.
well, it is a whole nother podcast. But if you look at our
Yeah.
kids, right? A lot of times, that it is handed to them. They want it handed to them. They don't
Mhm.
understand that life is not easy.
It's a
Yeah.
Pop-Tart generation. Yeah.
Uh, so next thing we're going to talk about, and this is where we got to, we're going to go over our next segment and time wise, but it's important that we talk about your groups because this is where the magic is happening. This is where I will say that this is where you've made the most progress over the last couple months. Look, everyone, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, Jodi Watkins over the last couple months is the highest dollar amount earner on the Convene platform over the last couple months. But
Yay.
congratulations on that. But talk
Thank you.
about your groups, and we're going to spend most of the time here and reclaim your life.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I had to do is simplify it.
Yeah,
I had too much. It was all over the place. And then I wondered why nobody was engaging, right? So I had to really kind of drill down and simplify it. So I do have the Unforced Pathway to Sound Leadership. That is a free group for any leaders out there to come in and watch those videos. That'll talk about some of the stuff that I talked about in my keynote and what I talk about when I get hired to come in. But the Reclaim Your Life, I I started thinking, I was like, okay, well, if all my writing and all my other stuff is on this one place, right? Well, instead of me having to send out invoices separately and do all these other things, I was like, why don't I just put all my coaching in one place? Like all of
yeah,
it. And so I did. And that has really not only made it easier for me, but it's allowed me to really engage with people on a different level. So now I have, inside the Reclaim Your Life, it's like I have my subscription group, which still exists. And then I also have the modules. So I always tell people just click what has a number beside it, right? Like,
yeah,
so there's 6 modules. Each one, I also realized that taking an entire course can be difficult for a lot of people until they take module 2 for time management, right? But taking an entire course can be difficult. And so what I did this time is, first off, I made it to where anyone can invest. It's literally under $20 per module, and you get a ton of content. It's well worth it. But I also did a 40% referral because I want my people who refer to get rewarded for that. So that's what I did with those modules. I completely redid it. I did brand new modules, and I worked really hard on them. So please
You
come
did.
and take them, right?
I'm
Like,
going to show.
I want everybody to come take them.
I'm going to show a couple of slides. This slide right here. And so the last slide is what we were showing is your community, and I wanted to show your book because your modules are based
Mhm.
off your book. What's in your book, right?
Yes. Yes.
So we want to make sure that we make that connection. But these are the modules up top, and then what's below, you can see the arrow there, is the time management module. So kind of just
Mhm.
talk about, there's the 6, and then talk about the time management module, like the lessons that you have in there.
Okay, well, every time I have a new client and we start on this segment, we talk about a time audit. I started doing time audits actually after I got out of the military, 'cause people always think that I got my time management from the military. And I said, oh no, I had to lose my time and then gain it back. so, so what I had to do is I really had to audit my time. I was wasting a lot of time and I didn't even realize it. So I started doing a thing called a time audit where it's basically an inventory of your time. And you can't create more time until you figure out where you're wasting time.
Mhm.
So then, and all I want to just point out that while this is based on my book, this is all also based on the evolution that I've made, the progress I've made over the last few years. This is
Absolutely.
all brand new content that no one has ever had access to. So I highly encourage anyone out there to go take it because I've evolved as a coach, as a person, as a mentor, over the last few
Yeah,
years. So I hope
100%,
that
100%. I'll attest to
people
that.
understand that. But so the time audit is first, and then we can move on to creating more time. Because a lot of times we don't have time. None of us have time. I tell people all the time, like, I don't have time to do most of the things that I do. I've just learned how to either create more time or block it out.
Yeah. Or prioritize, right?
Yes. So I talk
Yeah.
about that too. Yeah, that's in
Yeah,
there too. Yeah.
because again, I think that's when you talk about, again, I'm throwing that, but when you talk about the shiny object thing,
Yeah.
and you had to prioritize and say, okay, I can't help everybody all the time. I have to
Right.
prioritize me, and all that. So
Yeah.
that's good. Um,
Well, and
so
another thing is, and real quick, I just want to kind of take a little moment on that. When we have bills to pay, it's a whole lot easier to start chasing shiny objects. But what I had to start doing was
yeah,
literally take my own advice in that part. And I was like, you know what? If I don't expect if you can't get in shape overnight, so how do I expect this business to go overnight? So I have to
yeah.
actually work on it and focus and drill down.
I'm glad you said that because that is it. Yeah, let's talk about that. I find that what people do too often is one, they have their story. They're very passionate about their story. They're very passionate about their idea. They know what they want to do. And so okay, I have this story. They'll meet with me and they'll say, hey, I have this idea. I have this story. I have something that I want to create. Okay, let's create it. And then what happens is they start the creation, but it doesn't happen fast enough for them and they quit. They abandon it. They go back to the shiny object or they want it to fall into their lap. Well, guess what?
Mhm.
Being an entrepreneur, Jodi, I'm going to ask you a question. Is being an entrepreneur easy?
Nope.
No,
That's
it
why
is
not
not.
everybody does it.
That's right. That's why not everybody does. Some people, and that's okay. Some people need the 9 to 5. Some people need to go work for the man.
But I will say it can be easier when we surround ourselves by the right people who can
Yes,
help us get in the right direction. That's been
correct.
the game changer.
Absolutely. And streamline, right? Streamline.
Mhm.
Now, I will say this about a lot of people that have come into Convene, and I don't say this to be bad, because we've really evolved in how we teach people and bring people in.
Right.
But what you even said it a minute ago is that what a lot of people do when they come in is they just go, let's go, let's build, let's go. And they build and they build and they build. And then they go, whoo, wait a minute. I didn't mean to build it like that. There's a better way to build it. There's a different strategy that I want.
Where's my, I have a notebook. Yes, so I used to do that a lot until now because I didn't want to keep having to recreate. Now, you won't be able to understand all my chicken scratch, but this is what I did for the course.
Yeah.
And I checked and I checked and I checked and I went to the next one and I checked, right? You got to have some organization.
Who taught you how to make that? Who did that? Who taught you how to do something like that? Draw it
I
on
will
the sheet of
say
paper.
you, and I have to give Eugene some credit on that too. Yeah.
Exactly.
You guys drilled that into me. So I appreciate
Well, in
that.
that
That's because
case,
Eugene and I have made it. We've done it over and over and over.
in that case, it was
Right.
done in crayon and grease pencil.
That's right, for sure. Army strong for Eugene.
Yeah.
But that's the point, is that, streamline it and do it and put the work in. That's what you just did. You just put your head down and you created those 6 modules, and you really worked hard to get them, because you would hit me up and say, can you approve this? Can you approve this? Can you approve this?
Yes. And then what was it on the other groups, the coaching groups? It was like, Matt, just trust me, just approve.
Yeah, exactly. So that kudos to you on sticking to it and coming now and getting very focused, very organized. And what you've seen, right? Has it paid off?
Immensely. Yes.
Yeah.
And I haven't even started marketing the course. This is actually the official launch. So yay.
This is the official launch.
It is officially launched, you guys. Now
Yeah.
this is going to be my first marketing
Pull that slide back up, Doc, if you don't mind, of the
Which one?
Actually go back to her group, and then we'll go we'll go from her group to her community.
The modules?
Yeah, the modules, but go to her group first. It's the one above that.
Page 8 or 7?
Oh goodness.
Wow.
Or
You guys are killing
6?
me.
The one that has her book.
Just
Reclaim
show
Your
them all
Life.
and we'll tell you.
Okay.
No, I'm just
All
playing.
right.
Go to the one that has her
All
book, Reclaim Your Life. Okay.
Jeez.
So
These freaking people,
I know.
I tell you.
I lost you. So,
Marines.
well, here's the modules. So we can just start here. But the
Yeah.
modules,
Yeah.
again, you want people to buy your book. So on the community, on your group, you can buy the book. There's a link. That's
Yes.
what I always say, multiple streams of income, sell your book. It's not in Convene, but you link out to it. People can buy your book. And then inside, after the book, going through it, then you have your modules here. So this is it.
Yeah.
This is the launch.
Yeah.
We want people to go take the modules, go through it, buy Jodi's book, and we'll get in a book club coming up here. We'll get it scheduled. We'll get it on thing. I think book clubs are one of the best things we do inside of Convene. We have a lot of authors. We want to do book clubs, and we'll do one for Jodi's where we're going through it sequentially, all of it.
And I do want people's feedback, because I will be doing a version 2 of Reclaim Your Life in 2024. That's my plan. So I'm looking for feedback, because like I said, like this is updated. The modules are updated. So when people take them, I actually have surveys in there. Hey, please, give me your feedback. Let me know. Is there anything that you'd like me to include? Is there anything, you have any questions? We have discussion boards in each lesson experience. So, but a lot of it, like you said, I mean, it's really just learning the things that I had to learn post-military, how to not be so overwhelmed, but still be very productive. And that's been, quite the journey. But I'm like, if I can simplify it for other people so they don't have to take as long as I did to learn it, then that's what it's for.
Mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. People have to get together, all 4. You can't just do one. And that's what you're a coach of. You're a coach of all of it, which is awesome. So, Doc, if you'll transition to the other group slide, the one that says other groups. Okay. So we'll pause because the timing wise, but you say we have a caller. So
that is correct.
Caller, huh?
Yes.
Yep, we have a caller.
Caller, go ahead.
Hey, Jodi, it's Jeff.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, I just was able to listen to the last couple minutes, and I wanted to call in and say congrats on all your hard work. It's been really awesome to watch you progress over the last couple of years. It's been fantastic.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and congrats on the launch of your modules.
Thank you.
They're
Hey,
awesome.
Hey, Jeff.
Because he's not on tonight.
No, I
know.
appreciate you calling in.
Mom's birthday. We got to let him go on that. Come on.
Yeah. We appreciate you calling in. In fact, if you could call in to the rest of the shows, because this is the best you've ever sound, buddy.
Oh, wow.
Probably
Maybe the best he's
probably
ever
the best
looked.
I've ever looked.
Well, you know, that
Really? You guys are horrible.
I'm kind of an obvious guy. I didn't feel I needed to say that.
For anybody out there, though, this is what you get when you come here. So these people became my family. This is what we do. We joke, we support each other, we encourage each other, we give some tough love hammering sometimes, but we love each other at the same time, right? It's like, come on.
Right.
Life is too short. You got to inject some humor.
Exactly.
Definitely.
All right,
Yeah.
let's
Well,
go.
hey, I just wanted to call in and also, I don't know if you have or not, but it might be worth at least mentioning the Young Entrepreneurs Program, the AFAA group that you're also starting.
Yeah.
Yep, we'll do
Yep.
that.
Yep.
Jodi.
Yep.
Jodi has.
Jodi does a lot.
Jodi does a lot in Convene, and we're going to kind of highlight it at the end about
Which
all
is
the
why I
group
have to
and-
prioritize and drill down and utilize other people sometimes. Yeah.
100%. 100%.
Well, you guys enjoy the rest of it. I'll take the rest off the air.
No, you're-
Tell your
Thanks,
mom
Jeff.
happy birthday.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Mom.
All right, bye-bye.
Come on. Yeah.
That's right. Absolutely. So go to you do other things, other groups inside of there. And so some of it is personal coaching. So we'll go to the next slide here and talk a little bit about your personal coaching that you do and what that entails.
Okay, so it's really just the same stuff. So the book is really based on my coaching style. So everything that I do is we start with mindset, we go to time management, we go to self-care, and then we do nutrition coaching. I am a certified nutrition coach, so I can do that, right? And then I do help people with exercise. I am a certified personal trainer. I have an online coaching app that I use. So I'm able to work with anyone, anywhere. I can build customized workouts for people. I have a team of people who help me out with that as well. And so we make sure that people have everything that they need to be fulfilled and have, just live the life that they've dreamed of. And that's what I really wanted. But I did the programs for 8 and 12 months. I know that some people will take a little bit longer, not because they want to take longer. It's just because maybe they got other stuff going on, right? So they want to be able to keep doing it, but maybe it's going to take a little bit longer. But I also love the 12-month because they commit. They're committing to a year of their life with this coaching, and they allow me to lock arms with them. So that's why I tell people, I don't know how to not pour into people. I learned that over time. I don't want to have to limit myself. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to create these groups and I'm going to get my people. I'm going to get the people who really want to commit, really want to learn everything that they can that I've been able to learn over the last however many years. And you can see I have one person there who she committed for a year and we created her a private group. So she and I actually have a discussion board in there. We go back and forth. Everything is very confidential. I don't share anyone's information. So that private group is just with she and I, and she knows that, that it's everything that we talk about stays in there. But when we do our calls, I do record them. I put the videos inside of our discussion group. So that way she can go back and look at them if she wants to as well. So
yeah, absolutely. It's a great way. It's it's the way that I do it. If you're working with me again, not to say
that's
that
where I got
learned
it
this
from.
me.
I did. Look, I always call you my fearless leader. Okay.
Exactly. That's
I
the
was
way
like,
to do it.
he's onto something. I was like, I'm going to copy that. That's really good.
But it's great if you're coaching people and you have a group coach, group, create an individual group where, you can go individual because you can have those private conversations in there and they can ask those questions. Now,
Right.
you're doing much more. You're getting deep. So here's the deal.
Yeah.
Is inside of what you're doing with individuals as well is why are you such a good coach? Because you can build that know, like, and trust. Okay. You can build the know, like, and trust with people. People want to be seen, heard, and validated. And so You are truly in a peer-to-peer situation with your coaching because you can have empathy. You can
Yeah.
understand. That's why we tell your story at the beginning. First 20 minutes of this is to talk about you and your story because that's why people need to hire you as a coach because you've been there, you've done it, you've walked.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're falling forward now. You're
Yeah.
taking what Denzel says and you're falling forward. And you can look at that person on a Zoom call and you can say, I understand. I understand.
Yeah. Well, and I know how important it is to start letting the wall down. So I wasn't always this type of coach because I had a wall up, right? I didn't trust
Mhm.
anybody. And I still have, I still have my trust issues, you know,
Yeah,
but
sure.
I've definitely evolved over the years. And so that's the thing too, where I'm starting to learn. I got asked last night on another call, what 3 words best describe me as a speaker now. And I said, authentic, transparent, and vulnerable. Vulnerable. That's what I live by now. I don't know how to not be those things anymore, and I don't desire to be. So,
Sure.
I do relate to people in different ways. And I have found, I tell people, I'm like, I'm not a mental health, I'm not, a mental health counselor. You and I have talked about that. I was going to go back to school for that, right? Because I thought I needed that title. But I started realizing I was like, I don't need any titles. I just need to be me. And that's
Yep.
what people need. They just need me to be me. So,
Yeah, absolutely. So you've been
and I
around
can refer
Convene.
them out, if they need to
Exactly.
be referred out, if they need more than what I can give them, I can refer them out. So, hey.
Yep. So you've been around Convene for a minute, but I will ask you a question. Ready for this? If
Okay.
I were to ask you this question to explain this little line, tell me how you would explain it and what it means to you. What does real life, real people, real experiences mean to you?
It's everybody. We all have things. We all have a story. You say this all the time. We all have a story. Every last one of us has an impactful story that if we learn how to get around the right people, because honestly, you guys helped me learn how to share my story as well. Get around the right people, learn how to share your story, and understand that your story can have impact on so many people out there who need to hear what you have to say. So the real life, real people, real experiences, we are real people. I don't know how to be fake. Like, we're real and we have real life experiences. Everything that I teach on or educate on is based on experience. Everything you educate
Yeah,
on is based on experience. And most of us are like that. We can have factual information, we have other resources, but we also have our own personal experiences that go along with that. And that's what people relate to.
absolutely. And that's what makes us different. That's what makes Convene Communities
Yes.
different. So, and that's one of the things I love about what we're doing, the authenticity of Convene. It's a big word for Marie.
It's
Probably used it wrong,
a lot of syllables, huh?
but it's what allows us to really have that peer to peer to open those doors. As veterans, it's we can look at each other and we can say, hey, yeah, I've been there. I've done it. I've walked through it. I've been there. Well, that's life. We can do that. We
Hmm.
always say that's like sitting around the table and going, hey, we're all parents here. If you were in this situation, how would you handle it? That's why I love, all the communities we have, the parenting community and all that, because we can
Yeah.
lean on each other, and get that
Right.
information that we may not
Right.
know. So, which is really, really cool. If you got a question for Jodi, we're going to wrap up here in just a couple minutes, but just put it in the chat and we'll ask the question. But Jodi, you've done amazing, and it's
Thank
been a
you.
journey, and it's been a process, but it's been a journey for all of us, right? As we've
Yeah.
grown
Yeah.
as a family and we've grown. I'll tell you one of the things I like to tell this story about Jodi is when we did Convene 23 last year, and she was one of the speakers. And she got up on the stage. Were you nervous? Be honest about what you were getting
Yeah,
ready to share and
because
talk about.
yes, because well, and then I came behind all of you amazing speakers, right? So there was that, but I was because yes, I literally sat there while I was listening to everyone else because I'm ADHD all over the place, so I need to be able to do something else. So I was writing because that's my default. So I was writing and I was doing a timeline and I was like, holy crap, there's a lot of stuff that kept happening in my life. And because Eugene had a timeline, right? And I was like, that's a really good idea. I had a therapist that mentioned that one time. So I was like, but my timeline was getting huge. And I was like, this is a lot. This is a lot. Like, this is why I wasn't doing it. Right. So when I got up there, that's what I was going off of. I had those thoughts in my head of, so much has happened.
Yeah.
Like, where do I even go with this? Like, which direction do I even go?
Yeah.
And you started asking me questions, and then you asked me something. I can't remember exactly. Maybe you do. You can go back and watch the video, everybody.
Yeah.
But you asked me something, and I put all that down. And you said that's when I turned on.
Yeah, correct. And the
That
way
was
this
cool.
happened, this is the story I tell. Like, Jodi gets up there and she starts talking. I ask a couple questions, and then she starts talking. And you can tell you're holding this piece of paper, right? You're holding it, and it's a Convene piece of paper, and you're
Like,
holding it. It's in your
with
hand,
your
and
life.
it's right here, And then and Doc, you remember this because you were sitting right there and videoing, and you literally turn around and put it down. And I didn't ask you another question.
I just
was
couldn't
like, it's
anymore.
on. I got up and walked off the stage because I was like, it's on. She's getting ready to go. Because you flipped the switch at that very moment and you started talking, and it ended up being, to me, one of the most powerful, one of the best talks that we had there. But what we didn't do during that time is we didn't go from your trauma, your story, to how are you really going to grow that. And now you've done that. And that's what's so impressive
and
to
that's
me
it.
is you have really reorganized everything. You have really come back to what's special about you, and really kind of just taking it, the bull by the horns, and you're running and all that. So
tremendously powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow. It blew me away. As you can see on the screen here, we have a question from good old Gunny Warren there, my buddy Brenda.
All right.
The
Says hi,
greatest
Jodi.
gift.
Yeah. What has been your greatest gift since becoming part of Convene?
It's funny. I saw that pop up and I thought about it for a second. And the first thing that came to my mind was the real friends that I have right now. I grew up in the same town my whole entire life, but I never really had people around me like I do now that actually want me to win. Right.
Yeah.
So I would say the real authentic friendships that have come out of being here has been definitely the greatest gift. The time that you've put into me, everything. Yeah, that's been the gift.
Well, it's a family, totally a family. And so, again, I'm going to let Doc say a couple words and then let you say a couple words, and then I'll come back in and close us out. Before I do that, up in the upper left-hand corner, you see the donate button just pop up. So I'm glad you did that, Doc. Doc does this out of the kindness of his heart. So if you can take a picture of that QR code, it'll take you to his Venmo, and just give $1 or $2, just give a little bit of money for Doc for everything that he does. It's, you make a huge difference, Doc. You come on live during the days with me. It's really just, it's been so much fun since you've started doing this. And, in fact, when I came on earlier, he was playing the guitar, serenading me. That was kind of cool, from a Navy guy to a Marine. That's pretty cool. But Doc, let me Jodi, don't
I'm going to leave my comments to myself on that one.
Right?
I was just hoping to get lucky.
Doc,
See, I wasn't even going to go there.
Joe,
Lucky. Look, I was hoping to have an audience. I mean, get your mind out of the gutter, Jodi. Jeez.
Good God.
How
What do you have
Y'all
to
do
say,
realize I said I was a female in a male-dominated career field, right? Like, I had a lot of guys around. They talk horrible. Okay?
so offended. Wow. So offended. I don't.
Doc,
That's my last word. I'm offended.
Yeah.
No.
Offended. What do you got to say?
I have to go back to the conference because I'm not an emotional person at all. And your speech, you had me teared up. It was so powerful, so moving. And I'm super happy to know you and call you friend.
Yeah.
Well, I can say the same for you, Doc, because I heard some of yours too. So there's that.
Yeah.
We won't tell.
So Jodi,
put yourself on the podcast at some point. Oh yeah, next week. Never mind.
Yeah. So yeah, he is on next week.
I'm on every week.
Exactly. But you are the special guest next week. So Jodi, listen, we're going to put the contact slide up. Just tell people how they can contact you, and kind of close us out. What do you want people to know about you? Why would I, Doc, other people, why would we want to work with you?
I said it earlier, I don't know how to not pour into people. So I'm going to give you everything I got. You know, it's going to be every facet of life. And I don't know how to not do that.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you want authenticity, if you want the vulnerability, if you want somebody that's transparent and is going on this journey with you, like literally I tell people, I'm like, hey, I'm locking arms with you. You know, you're not doing this by yourself. So, you know, if you value those things, then yeah, you're a perfect fit.
Yeah, that's it. So get in touch with Jodi, go join her community. A couple of other things that she does. We're kind of running out of time, but other things that you do is
join and make sure you actually include yourself. Don't just join. Don't just sit there.
Be a part of it. For sure. Yeah. But Jodi, as we close out, it's go join her community. Inside of that, you'll find out the other things she does. She's part of the health and wellness community. She's got a couple other things. She's doing the entrepreneur for kids eventually that Jeff was
That's
talking
where
about.
time blocking comes into play, you guys. Don't freak out.
Speaking of time.
Yeah, speaking of time. But look, I appreciate you. We got to go. I appreciate you. Everything that you've done. We've become tremendous friends over time. It's great. You know, I look at the things that you're doing and I'm so proud of you. Keep it up. Keep growing. You're setting the example. And just keep being you. That's the thing. You're a genuine person and you pour into people. Everybody have a good night. Next week, everybody, the special guest is Doc.
That guy's special, all right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.